Fitzgerald!
There
we go. Good evening.
Good evening.
Try that again. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to an evening, well, it's called 30 Years On with Mark Smith. Big fans of Mark Smith then. How many people here know Mark Smith less than 5 years? Oh, show of hands. What about more than 5 years? More than 10 years? Give us a big cheer if you can give a toss how long you've known Mark Smith. No, the man is a legend, and when he told me, when he asked me to do this, I said yes, of course, without question. And it's the life, it's the life and career. Well, no, actually the career. So he's been working in various industries for 30 years. He's the only man I know who started his working career at the age of 42.
We have hope.
The man's a legend. He's been a great friend of mine as well for a number of years, working in security, working as a bodyguard, close protection officer, life coach. I'm just one of a number of people here that I know he would have given a great deal of support to. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being. We're going to learn, we're going to have a laugh along the way, hopefully. We're going to learn a lot about mindset. I'm going to learn a lot. I hope you're going to learn a lot as well. As we welcome to the stage, it's my absolute pleasure. 30 years on, the legend that is Mr. Mark Smith. And it's going to keep it going. It's 30 years on, and it's the legend that is Mr. Mark Smith. So Mark, here we are, 30 years on in career, a few more years on in life, so what are we, kind of not quite 50 yet, 48, 49, something like that, but tell us, I mean,
Mileage.
life goes so fast.
Mileage on the clock.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's 48 now, goes in, it just flies by, doesn't it? We've known each other, what, 7 or 8 years?
7 or 8 years, yeah.
There's people in this room that I've known for
Flies by when you have fun, right?
30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Some of these people 20,
Crazy.
15, 20 years.
So the idea, I mean, I know you presented it to me, and I know exactly why here. Delighted to support you. You've been a great mate to me, so why wouldn't I? But I know the background. But explain to everyone, what's the background? 30 years on. How did the ideas originate?
Okay, so what it is, I wanted to do something. I wanted to do an evening where I would talk about mindset and stuff, because where the last 7 or 8 years I've been very involved with coaching, whether it's life coaching, physical coaching, whatever. I wanted to do an evening where I wanted to get like 30, 40 people together and have a talk, uplifting, positive. But it just happened that it coincided with the fact that this is my 30th year in security.
Yeah.
And I thought, do you know what? Over that 30 years, there's a lot of people that have played a major part in that growth or development of me as a person. And even being here now, looking at and seeing certain faces turn up that I haven't seen for such a long time, it's just a very, very lovely, emotional thing, So it was just to get together with people that count, people that are important to me, and talk about those years,
And do you know what? I mean, in the industries that you've worked in, you have to be ultra professional every day, otherwise bad things can go wrong. So to do that for 30 years is a real testament to the character, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done.
What I'd like to do, Mark, before we delve, I've got lots of questions here to ask you. Before we delve into it, what I'd like to do, ladies and gentlemen, is actually just explain a little bit of how we're going to run this evening with Mark's permission. So I'm going to interview Mark, go through lots of questions here, then in about 30-40 minutes time, going to introduce to the stage a young lady who will explain a little bit further about her story, but her name's Lola Massingham, and she's making great strides at such a young age in the luxury property industry as well. So lots of kind of mindset and motivational stuff there, some great stuff. So after Mark, we'll have a little interview with Lola, and then we'll have a little interval, And after that, it's literally, as we like to say, it's over to you. The night becomes yours. And what I mean by that is on your tables, you should have, hopefully I've got one here, question cards somewhere. Have we got question cards there somewhere? There we are, on the stall. So just like this, we've got some pens and we've got some question cards. And what we'd like you to do, whether it's through the evening, if something comes to mind while we're doing the interviews, or indeed in the interval, what we'd like you to do is actually write your name and your question on here. And it could be a question for either Mark or indeed Lola, once you've had her story as well. And we'll have both of them up here in the second half for a panel interview. But to make that work, by the end of the interval, we need lots and lots of questions. So, ladies and gents, can you do that for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, excellent. So, that's what we're going to do in the second half. So, as I say, back to you, Mark. What I'd like to ask you, 30 years on, 30 years since you started working in the security industry, but how did you actually get into security?
Okay, so when I left school, went to college, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, to be honest. I did a business degree and a business diploma, but I didn't know really what I wanted to do. That was the truth of it. So I started working for an insurance company, Frizzell. Didn't enjoy it, but what I was doing at that time, I was training a lot. I was going to the gym all the time. I loved the gym, and I remember speaking to a friend of mine called Steve at the time, and he had just started working at the Opera House, or the Academy back then it was called. And he said, look mate, I'm doing 5-6 nights a week on the door. It was like £5 an hour, cash in hand, whatever. But it worked out that it was, you doing more doing that than doing this job that I hated in the daytime than sat in an office. And I thought, that's perfect, I can do that, do a bit of that. And then, you know, I can train in the day, go to the gym all day and just do what I like. So that's what happened. But I was quite fortunate because I didn't just go on a door. I happened to get introduced to what I believe was the pioneer of, you know, of security at the time, a guy called Pete. And he was like revolutionising it, as you would say. He, you know, all the door staff then, you know, I hate the word bouncers, but they were classed as bouncers. And Pete called them door supervisors, and they wore suits and they had a shirt and tie, and they looked smart. And his ethos, his morals and his standards were very high. So although I only intended to do it for a short period of time, as I got into it, his company was growing and he was moving around the southwest of England. And I travelled with him, and I became an ops manager, and I kind of enjoyed it. I was young, so I was travelling around different towns, different cities, staying over there for the weekends where they would set up new pubs or clubs. And I loved it. It was just exciting, meeting new people.
I say it's exciting, but you know, as we touched on at the very start, it's a dangerous world to be in. And have you kind of dealt with situations? Must have done a number of times where you felt you were actually going to get hurt.
Yeah, there's been lots of situations that have got hurt or thought I would get hurt. Probably the worst one was myself and Steve, actually, the guy that you just saw on the door doing the guest list. We worked
Steve Bristol.
That's it. We worked at a place called Bristol.
Right.
And that venue, we had taken over. The guy that ran the company asked us to go and put a team in there.
It's the guy.
And he had the licensee of that bar had sacked the door team. But what we didn't know, the door team in Bristol ran the whole of Bristol. There was like 1,000 door staff, and we turned up, and it was supposed to be a very simple job. There was 4 of us. There was myself and Steve, and then 2 others. And every night we were there. Bear in mind, you don't know anyone. One of the good things about doing security is you have local knowledge. If you don't have that local knowledge, you're very isolated. And one night we were there, and these guys came in. And when you do security, like you do events and stuff, you get a sense. You can get a sense about people that something potentially is not right. And these guys started coming in like 2s and 3s. And when you work the door, if you do it properly, you understand, you analyse people, and you don't let large groups in. But these people had managed to get in. And I remember I was stood on the front door, and we had a CCTV monitor that looked inside the venue. And it was like 5-2. I remember it so well. It was 5-2, and I thought these guys are going to. We thought all night they were going to play up, but they didn't. 5-2. We've got away with it. Literally, a minute later, it kicked off. But what they'd done, they picked on some students, but it was set up. It was to get us. So it was a very old building. There was these big wooden doors, like saloon doors, and I remember pushing through the doors to go through, and as I went through, and I can remember it so well, it was an old, there was lots of brass fittings, and this guy pulled a brass fitting off and he brought it down to go over my head. And I mean, natural instinct, put your hands up, and I remember it smashing into my forearms, and he did it twice. And then as he did that, someone punched me from the side of the head. I remember like wobbling and starting to go down, and we're getting up very quick. As he went to kick me, he was going to kick me in the head. It was a horrendous situation, and Steve is the only one that was there, so he knows. But it was terrible. I think it was 9 of them in the end. I remember at the end of the night, cut lip, bust eye, and all sorts. And we were living on site, so we were living upstairs. And you go to bed and you kind of reflect in your mind: did you do enough? Did you not do enough? Was it okay? And every night after that, there was a situation. Every night. And bear in mind, I was like 19, 20. I was very confident. I was fit and strong. And I thought, but even that, it makes you think, what's the point? What am I doing here? But your pride, ego carries you through, and you stay there because you don't want to be like limp. So we stayed, and every night there was a fight, and then one night this lady came up to us, and she said, out the back lane, there was this little brick lane. She said, there's guys out there with crash helmets on and baseball bats. And I was like, oh, okay. So we looked on the camera, and yeah, they were there. And I remember saying to Steve, this isn't worth it. But I did. We rode it through, and we stayed, and they must have thought we were like some super tough army squadron. They gave up. It wasn't. I was at breaking point, but but that was a bad one.
Can I ask you then, like working in the industry, and like you say, you've become more experienced and you sense trouble.
Yeah.
Is there kind of different levels in terms of the adrenaline? Obviously, where you're sort of sensing a situation, and then through to maybe a mild and medium situation, and very serious situations like that. Do your adrenaline levels match that, or do you learn to cope with that?
Well, so I believe, so I always say better to be proactive than reactive. A lot of security are reactive, so they wait for something, they don't pay attention to the room, it kicks off, and then they've got to go in and deal with it. So it's better to be proactive, see what's going on. But
I'll do it before you go now.
Actually, the easier thing is dealing with it. A fight. There's a fight you get stuck in because you don't have any time to think. You have to rush in and you grab onto someone, and that's that. But it's the anticipation. So if you've got people in the room and they're kind of not doing, they're not bad, but it's that they thrive on it. They can play on it a bit. And sometimes, if you've got someone who's like a known troublemaker or whatever, obviously you're more anxious.
Can I ask you? I mean, you mentioned that terrible situation, and you said to Steve at the time, "Really, is this worth it?" Has there been other times when you thought, "Do you know what? What I'm in now, is this enough? I've had enough of this."
There was one time when I did leave. Well, I stayed within the ship, but I said to the guy that I was working for, Pete, at the time, so I'm not going back. We had a situation with a licensee. 2 guys came to the door. Wasn't in Bournemouth. 2 guys came to the door, said, "We're looking for so-and-so," the licensee. I remember them, my memory is like photographic. I remember this white Lexus Sora. If you know cars, it was a very rare car. It was a Lexus Sora, it's a beautiful car, pulled up, and these 2 guys got out and said, "We're looking for Neil, the licensee." And I said, "Well, I don't know if he's here." This is before you had like DPS and like licensees had to be on site. So I said, "I don't know if he's here." I knew he was there, but I knew you get a vibe. You know if someone's a serious operator or not. And they said, "Okay, we'll be back at 2 o'clock." It's fine. Hear that all the time, but these guys are took quite seriously. So I spoke to Neil. He said, "Don't let them in. Just get rid of them. Whatever you do." I said, "Okay." So I could tell by his demeanour there was a problem. And then they drove off, and then Neil said to me, I've got an answer anyway, don't worry. And I said, what's that? I thought he's going to give it the big one, act tough or something. Anyway, we walked out to the car, he had the car outside, and he pulled the boot, and he had a gun in the boot, and I was like, and I think Chris, who's here, he was there at the time. But I just thought, this is the final straw. This venue, I thought there's no point. I think.
So what kind of time is this? Well, how old would you have been at this time?
This is like 27, 28.
Right,
something like
okay,
that.
so I deep into the job.
Yeah, I was
career.
Yeah, I was 10 years into it then.
Yeah.
So, but you know, as you get older and as you get into it, your ego starts to drop, and you start to realise that, you know, I was very fortunate. Although that situation occurred in Bristol, and I didn't get like beaten up or anything. I got hit, but I didn't like badly. It could have been a lot worse because we actually got them out. We dealt with it, but you realise that over time, the law of averages.